Show you. First of all, welcome to our mocktail half hour. So glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully this is going to be fun. It can be interactive. Feel free to put comments in the chat, ask questions. You can come off mute if you want to do that. This should be a lot of fun. And then this is the QR code that I mentioned. So as I mentioned, we are excited to be able to support the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Our members at the Georgia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics are experts in food and nutrition, and we know that hunger doesn't take a break, no matter whether the people are working or not. Kids and families need food, and so we want to help ensure that our neighbors don't go hungry. And to that end, we are excited to be able to offer an opportunity to our members who can to support the Atlanta Community Food Bank. So if you want to scan that QR code, you can make a donation of any amount to support our neighbors. So this, friends, is the very first recipe that we are going to make today. And this is a citrus mint refresher. And so research is telling us that this generation, this new next generation, younger generation, are drinking less alcohol than generations before. And I think there are a lot of reasons that that is happening. And as we enter into the holiday season, I thought, how fun would it be just to think about some mocktail type treats, refreshers, drinks that people can enjoy that don't contain alcohol. Obviously, alcohol is an expense that some people may not want to spend money on, but there are also some potential health risks with alcohol that people might want to avoid. So I think there are a lot of reasons that people enjoy mocktails. I love a good mocktail, and so this one is really tasty. And I'm going to show you this recipe in two different fun presentations. One of the things that I love about mocktails that I would say I think makes a mocktail even more special is how it's presented. So a mocktail that is presented in a fun and attractive way with a pretty glass, with pretty garnish makes all the difference. So to that end, we'll get started. So with this recipe needs some fresh juice. And so we're going to be squeezing the juice from 2 oranges. This says 1 orange, and maybe my oranges just aren't very juicy. I'm not sure. I'm going to roll them like this to get the juices flowing. And then real life, I've got no, I've got it. Thank you. I've got milk. I wanted to get warmed up in a little pan, or a little burner over here on the side, and it got a little too hot. So that's okay. We'll just clean that up and set it to the side, and we'll come back to that. But with these oranges, I found that last night they just didn't have that much juice in them. But if you roll them, that helps a lot in order to release some of the juices from the fruit. So we're going to cut these in half with a nice sharp knife. And I did wash these. That's another thing I always like to remind people about food safety, is you want to wash the fruit so that the outside is clean when you cut through it, so you don't end up with any bacteria being introduced into the fruit or to the juice. So we're going to just juice these. And of course, thinking about this time of the year is cold and flu season, and people are thinking a little bit more sometimes about nutrition and health. And of course, we know that citrus, full of vitamin C and other important vitamins and minerals that people are thinking about. Of course, vitamin C is always important, but I feel like people think about it more. I get a lot more questions, I'm sure you do too, about vitamin C, or people will tell me they're taking their vitamin C in order to stay healthy or to keep away colds and flus, which is fine. I'm happy that they're eating fruits and vegetables. It doesn't matter to me why they're doing it. I'm happy that they're doing it, and certainly there's some importance there. So we're going to get these juiced. We're going to get as close to half a cup as we can. And then we're going to switch to the lime. And this is a great way to work your arms. So if you need some exercise, this is a great way to exercise. Get your stress out too. You can squish these pieces of fruit and will make you feel better. If you have any stress, I don't have any stress, but if you do, just kidding. Of course I do. We all do. And you could do this with any citrus fruit, by the way. I have some grapefruit in my refrigerator, and I was actually thinking this would be really delicious with grapefruit.
We had a question pop up.
Okay.
When we donate to the Atlanta Community Food Bank, should we put GAND or RDN in the comment section?
Sure, that would be awesome. I would love that. That would be a great way for us to try to maybe track some of these donations. That would be wonderful.
And David mentioned that Missy Cody would be proud
Ah,
and give you big, strong, muscly arms.
yay! Yeah. It's so funny, David, that you mentioned Missy Cody. I was thinking of her the other day because I was thinking about the concept that people eat food, not nutrients. And of course, people feel all kinds of way about the idea of food as medicine. That phrase for some people is a little problematic. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think that food is part of medicine, nutrition is part of medicine. And obviously, people can't be healthy without enough food or with the right food. So I think it is an important concept. And people don't eat nutrients, they eat food. So as we think about even making something as simple as a mocktail, we can educate people about that concept and about the fact that, food is where we get the nutrients. We don't eat the nutrients, we eat the food, but in eating the food, we get the nutrients. So as we do education, I think it's how we can start that process. All right, so now I have our fruit juice. So I have orange juice and I have lime juice. And I have the other ingredients over here on this tray that I mentioned. So I've got some club soda, so our sparkling, and then I have some agave. You could use honey, you could use a little bit of sugar, or you could skip it altogether. But I will say that in testing these last night, the oranges were not particularly sweet. These are navel oranges, and you could use a different kind of orange, like a cara that might be a little sweeter, or even blood oranges. I was very tempted to buy blood oranges, but the picture that I shared didn't look like blood oranges. So I was trying to be authentic. So we have this, and so there are a couple of different ways that you could present this fun mocktail. So if you're thinking about the holidays and you're thinking about how you might do this, I have these cute little coupe glasses. These are vintage. I love these glasses. I bought these at an estate sale ages ago, and I love, love, love them. And then I have these beautiful crystal rocks glasses, also bought thrifted. So these are lovely. I bought these for my husband for our anniversary. And I just think they're both really beautiful. Two different kinds of presentations, right? And you could do either one, and both would be very, very special. So there's another fun way that I try to zhuzh up a drink, and that is by doing some sort of a rim. And you can do a lot of different kinds of rim. I'm going to do a little sugar rim on each of these. So you might be saying, oh, a sugar rim, you're going to add sugar. Yes, I'm going to add sugar. Absolutely. I'm going to add a little sugar to it. And the way that I do that is I'll make a little mound. This is actually a little cinnamon fragranced sugar. So this is sugar that has a cinnamon stick in it, or a couple of cinnamon sticks. And it just makes the sugar taste a little bit like cinnamon, not a whole lot, but a little bit. So I make a little mound on the tray of the sugar, and then I'm going to take that lime that I juiced, and I'm just going to use it to rim the top, right? So you get it a little bit wet, and then I'm going to tap it into the sugar, and it's going to give it just this pretty little special rim. And this is raw sugar, which is a little bit more granular. It has a little bit bigger grain. So isn't that pretty? And it's going to make, you could do this with like a colored sugar. You could do this with a sanding sugar, or you could do it with salt. If you wanted something a little bit different, you could definitely do a little salt. So I'm going to do it also on the rocks glass, because I'm going to show you both of these, each of these different ways to enjoy this. You could do just half of the glass. So for yourself or for someone else, if you just wanted to do half of the glass, or you could skip it altogether if you want to, but I think it looks pretty. And it's, just a little bit of something sweet. So to this recipe, we're going to add a little bit of agave. So agave is sweeter than sugar, but doesn't have as much, it doesn't have as many calories. I'm not going to measure it. The measurements are in the recipe, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to measure it. And I'm just going to use a spoon to mix that in a little bit. The great thing about agave is that it does dissolve very quickly, and I really appreciate that in making a drink. So I'm going to add a little bit of ice. Now, back to the concept of different ways to present a mocktail. So, if you have a client or a customer that you want, or a patient that you're trying to help drink less alcohol, one of the things that they'll sometimes say to me is that they miss the experience of having a special drink, right? So a special glass or special presentation really helps to make up for that. So we've got our two different options. I'm going to, in the recipe you have, it says to add ice to the glass, or to muddle the the mint and then add ice to the glass. So we're going to do that in this one. And then I'm going to show you a different presentation for the other one. So we have our mint, and I'm going to put a few sprigs in the bottom as per the recipe in the bottom of the glass. And I've got this shaker, and I'm going to put some in the shaker as well. And so I'm going to do one shaken and one stirred, right? A la James Bond, right? We'll try each of the different ones. So now I have a muddler. This is a muddler. You could use a wooden spoon handle would work also. And we're just gonna mash the leaves in this glass. And the reason we do that is because it breaks up the leaves of the mint and it releases the oils and the flavors and the aroma. You can't smell this, but it smells amazing already. So we're just gonna muddle this. You could add a little tiny pinch of salt or sugar also, and it would help break down the mint leaves a little bit. So we're gonna do that same thing in our shaker glass as well. So hopefully you can see that. It's kind of down in the bottom. And then we're gonna add the ice, right? So we're gonna add some ice to this glass. So ice in this glass. And then I'm gonna add some ice into the shaker glass. And I'm gonna put half of each of one of these, half into this glass. So I know this recipe can make 2 drinks. So I filled that about halfway. And then I'm gonna put the other half into this shaker. And then I'm gonna do my very best cocktail. Anybody remember the movie Cocktail? I'm aging myself, but that's okay. I'm gonna do my very best cocktail kind of. I don't have a future in that, but we're gonna give it a good shake, shake, shake. Tom Cruise, that's right, that's right. So you give it a really good shake and it helps to chill. This is so cold. Mary, feel that, how cold that is. Isn't that cold? So it gets it nice and cold. And then we're going to strain it into our glass. So into our beautiful coupe glass, we're going to strain, but we're going to leave a little bit of room, right? Even though I want to leave a little bit of room because I'll pour the rest of this into the rocks glass. There's not much left, but we want to leave a little room because we want to add the fizzy. We want to add the sparkle to it, right? That's going to be a little bit more, it just adds a little bit of a special element too, to add a little bit of fizzy, and it makes it almost like a little glass of champagne or bubbly or something like that, but 0 negative side effects, right? Look how pretty that is.
Yummy.
Isn't that pretty? And the other one's really pretty too. So it just depends on what you prefer, what you would like to drink. So tell me in the chat, which one would you prefer? Mary, which one would you like to try?
I like this one.
Okay, you gotta come over here. You gotta give it a test.
All right.
Okay.
I like this one.
Give it a try.
I like this fun glass.
No, cheers.
They look like margaritas.
I know, that's true. Now, if you did want to add alcohol to this, you definitely can. And if you did add alcohol, you could do a couple of different things. You could definitely do tequila and make it a little bit like a skinny margarita-esque. You could add a little gin and make it a little bit more like a gin cocktail. You could add, what else? You could add a little grenadine.
Oh,
yeah, my son
Sweet.
added a little maraschino cherry last night to the little maraschino cherry juice. That was very popular. Any other thoughts on that? What do you think? Did you taste it? Isn't it good?
It's yummy. And it's not too sweet.
Mm-mm.
Perfect amount of agave.
Yeah.
But I like the sugar rim.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a little tart.
Yeah.
It's yummy.
Yay. Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to the next recipe. Let me know in the chat what you think. Would you try this? How would you serve this? Would you serve this? Cheers.
I might put like a little lime on the side.
Oh, yeah.
A little garnish.
Definitely you could garnish. I did not garnish, but there's suggestions for garnishing in the recipe. So check that out. You're welcome to hold on to your cocktail, my friend.
Delicious.
I'm just going to toss this all out of the way as we get started for the next recipe. So we're going to let me show you our next recipe. What did you guys think? I see a lot of activity in the chat. That's exciting. Mary, tell me what our friends think.
So we've got loving the shake, looks delicious.
Awesome.
Just heading over, saving some. Some cheers, and Lena's gonna try it.
Yay!
I highly recommend trying it because it's delicious. Very refreshing.
Yes, very refreshing. And it could be something that you serve at the holidays, especially if you're having like a brunchy kind of event and maybe you don't want to have alcohol or you don't want to serve alcohol or you've got friends or loved ones who are going to be joining you who don't drink alcohol. This is a great option. All right, so now we're going to move into making this next recipe, which is a spiced hot cocoa. And I made this last night for my family and it was absolutely delicious. It is very rich. So I would suggest that you consider maybe how much you enjoy like a dark chocolate feel. Maybe you love it and that's great. Or maybe you want something that's slightly less bitter. This is actually a little like not very sweet, but I like that. And it's very rich. So completely up to you. You can modify to your taste. Recipes are always just starters. So I recommend adjusting it to your taste. Okay. So now we're going to start with this one. And this recipe is very, very flexible. You can use whatever kind of milk you like. I'm using regular milk. I'm actually using a high protein milk. So if you want to healthify it a little bit, that's okay. You could use a high protein milk. You could use a soy milk, which is what I used last night. It was very delicious. Dutch processed cocoa powder is also really high in flavonols. So, chocolate is actually has some health benefits, some health properties potentially. It's all the sugar that sometimes gets us in trouble. So this does have a fair amount of sugar, 2 tablespoons for 2 servings, so about 3 teaspoons per cup. You could, instead of using sugar, use an alternative sweetener. You could use like a Splenda for baking or a Splenda brown sugar substitute that I think is a great option. It would work really well in this recipe. I love all the spices in this. It definitely the pinch of salt and cayenne pepper. I ended up using a chipotle chili powder because that's what I have. It made a perfect amount of little heat on the back end. So highly recommend that. Don't skip it unless you just hate spice, in which case perhaps this is not your recipe. All right, so we're gonna jump into this hot cocoa recipe. So as you know, this one overheated a little bit, so I had to take it off of the pan. Uh-oh, it might be stuck. Oh, there we go. It's very, very hot. So I'm just gonna I'm not gonna do like the 5 minutes on the stove. We're just gonna melt everything into the pan. It's fine. So this is our brown sugar and all the spices. And ideally I would have put this in and let it sit and steep. And so maybe I'll do that while I make the nuts. So I've got the sugar and the spices in here, and I'm just letting that kind of melt into the hot milk. This milk is very hot. It came to a boil and actually boiled over a little bit. So now I'm gonna add the cocoa to this, and then we'll make the nuts and let this steep while we make the nuts recipe. So we've got 2 teaspoons, and this is Ghirardelli Dutch process. It was on sale last night at Kroger, so I wouldn't normally buy this because it's pretty expensive, and I'm kind of cheap, but it is a great product. It is a really great product. So I have that, and I added a little pinch of salt and the cayenne at the very end, and I think that's a smart thing to do. I'm gonna add a little homemade vanilla extract, and then I have a couple of mix-ins and options that we'll talk about at the end. Some of those are listed and some of those are not, so I'll come back to those. Don't let me forget to add in the chipotle pepper to this recipe because it hits on a totally different level, and I'll tell you why when we get there. But basically, one thing to keep in mind is that cocoa has it's got a lot of fat in it, and it doesn't really want to blend in really well. So you have to use a whisk and be patient and really work it in order to get the cocoa mixed into the milk. And this is actually going to be not a super unhealthy way to enjoy cocoa, right? A hot cocoa. It's really, really delicious. I'm very excited about this. All right.
What did you have your vanilla beans in to make your extract?
Oh, vodka. So I use vodka to do that and I leave it for months just to let it pull the vanilla out of the, because that's what they're using is alcohol anyway to extract the vanilla flavor. And I'll say it's, I get varying degrees of vanilla flavor. Sometimes it turns out great. Sometimes it's not as good. we're flexible around here. It's not a big deal. All right, so then we're gonna move on while that's steeped. So I set that to the side and it is gonna steep to get all that cinnamon and cloves and star anise and all that flavor into the milk. We're gonna just set that aside, let it do its thing. And I'm going to pull this little burner. I have a little burner that I use that sometimes gets hotter than I expect. And I'm gonna put this on, let's see if it's still hot. Let's turn it on low, which is where it was before, and it got pretty hot. Now, I love to make spiced nuts. I think that they make for a very delicious snack, but they also make for a really great gift. So I'll show you the ones that I made. I actually made this recipe last night. And so you can see I have some beautiful, isn't this a pretty little, again, vintage thrifted bowl? And you can see the nuts. Aren't they pretty? I think they're so pretty and they're really tasty and they make a really nice gift. And you can put them in a pretty little jar like this, or you can put them in a little flip top jar. You can put them in a little brown bag. They make a great teacher gift, neighbors, any of those. I think it's a great way to just kind of say thank you to people with a small homemade gift. I think it's perfect. All right, so we're gonna do a very Georgia themed nuts. You could use any nuts for this, but we are gonna definitely make it a Georgia themed nut mix today. And the way we're gonna do that is by using peanuts and pecans, which are Georgia staples. Just make sure I've got all my ingredients. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna heat up the pan over a medium heat. And then we're gonna add, and I'll show you the recipe. I just realized I didn't show you the recipe, but I'll show it to you at the end so that you don't miss it. We're gonna add, I know this is about half a cup. So I'm gonna do half a recipe. I'm not gonna do the full recipe because I already made half of the recipe last night and I don't wanna have waste. So I'm gonna add half of the recipe. I'm gonna make half of the recipe today. So that's about half a cup of peanuts. And I'm gonna eyeball it, about a half a cup of pecan. And I'm going to heat it over medium heat. And with nuts, you want to be so careful because nuts are very high in fat and they will burn so fast. Before you even know what happens, you will have burned nuts and you don't want that. So we're going to let those get warmed through. And when they start to smell fragrant, then you're going to know that you need to either turn down the heat or move on with your recipe. So that's kind of what we're waiting for. I'm going to turn it up a little bit, let it get warm. And I'm going to grab the cutting board.
All right, recipes in the chat.
Oh, good, thank you. All right, so while we wait for those to heat up, we're gonna do a couple of things. One is we are going to measure out our agave. I'm gonna use agave in this. You could use honey. You could use brown sugar, but it might not be perfect for this recipe just because you need a little bit of liquid kind of sugar. You need the liquidy kind of approach. So I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon because I'm making half of the recipe of the agave, and then I'm gonna add half a tablespoon of a neutral oil. In this case, I'm going to use extra virgin olive oil because it's what I have. I would normally just use peanut oil, which I think is perfect for this kind of application because peanut oil is very neutral, but I don't have any on hand right now. So I need to replenish my stock. But for today, it'll be fine. I like to mix together the sweetener and the oil together so that I get a very even distribution of the oil and the sweetener. So why am I using oil and a sweetener? And the reason is because I think it helps the toppings, both the rosemary and the salt stick better on the outside of the nuts. So I'm going to give these a little flip just to make sure we don't get any burning. I smell a little burning, but it's because of the milk on the burner. And then we're going to cut our rosemary. So this is some rosemary that I got from my garden last night. It's fine. And you could use more or less. I don't think I even really specified other than a large sprig. So you can decide how much rosemary you want to use based on what you like. But the key here is to cut it into tiny pieces because nobody wants a giant bite of rosemary. Rosemary is very strong and a little goes a long way. It is delicious, and when it's fresh, it's not, it shouldn't be too woody. It should be very tender. So you want to make sure that you got good rosemary, that it's not the kind that's dried. Don't use dried rosemary in this application because it won't be good. Those dried spices really need some liquid to get them perked back up. And dried rosemary won't do that in this recipe because there's not much additional liquid. There's a little bit added, but not much. All right. So I can smell these nuts are doing their thing. So now what I'm going to do is, ooh, I smell it. I can even see it a little bit. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so we don't end up with any burning. So you just want to be responsive to what's happening in the pan, right? If the nuts are starting to burn, take them off the pan, take them off the burner. If they start to turn brown or look off in any way, you just adjust, right? So I'm going to turn this off because we're pretty much done here, and it'll stay warm because the burner is still warm. So to this, I'm going to add my sweetener and my oil. And it'll sizzle a little bit. You can't really hear that, but I can hear it doing its thing. And then I'm going to give this a little shake. You don't have to do it this way. You can absolutely use a wooden spoon is a great tool for this. And I'm going to let it stay warm, and all of that that agave and the oil is going to coat the nuts and make them super, super delicious. It's going to perk up the flavor, make them extra yummy. And then to this, I'm going to add the rosemary. So I'm going to add this rosemary, and then I'm going to add some salt. And I just, do it by heart, I just cook by heart in general, and that's how I'm going to do this. We're going to give this a little flip. And of course, nuts are such a great thing to have around the house all the time, but even during the holidays, right? Because there's a lot of sweet things, a lot of things that maybe are not so health promoting, but nuts are a great health promoting food. And even with a little bit of extra sweetener, a little bit of extra oil, it's still a very healthy option to have around as a snack. And again, makes a great gift. All right, so these look really wonderful. I don't know how can you see that? Oh, look, isn't that great? Yeah, so good, so good. Okay, so to this, I'm gonna add the lemon zest. And I just have this great little tool, microplane, that breaks the zest down into teeny tiny pieces. If you don't have this, you could certainly do it by hand, or you could do it with a box grater. Just want to use the very tiniest amount, and you might need to chop it up because nobody wants a giant mouthful of lemon zest, but a little bit goes a long, long way. And this has been washed already. So again, going back to that food safety piece. All right, I'm going to give these a flip. And then I'm going to set them to the side in order to let them cool completely. Because what happens with nuts is they have a tendency to get a little bit soft, and almost, especially peanuts, because they're a legume, they can get a little beany when they've been cooked, when they're first cooked. And so you want to give them time to firm back up and get crisp again. So time is our friend when it comes to food. All right, so I'm going to show you this recipe really quickly to make sure that you got to see it.
And while you pull that up, Kay Ellen just said, these are great recipes. Thanks
Yay!
for sharing.
Oh,
She
you're
just bought a
welcome.
can of rosemary nut mix from Trader Joe's, but thinks this recipe will be better.
Yeah, and cheaper too. You don't have to
Yeah.
pay you don't have to pay the Trader Joe's fee on that. So here's the recipe that I just showed you. I hope that you will give it a try, and if you do, let me know what you think. I think these are super delicious. This is the ones I made last night. It was so good.
I tried them. They're delicious.
They're really good.
Rosemary.
Yeah. These would be really good with any mixed nuts. Certainly with pepitas would be really good too. So if you've got people who can't eat nuts, seeds work too. So you could definitely do it that way. All right. So before I go any further, I do want to remind you that we are doing a fundraiser for the Atlanta Community Food Bank, and I invite you to make a donation if you haven't already. And for people who may be watching this on the back end after the fact, please support our friends at the Atlanta Community Food Bank so we can keep our neighbors fed. All right, so with that, I'm going to just show you the end of this last recipe. I know we're a little bit over time, so thanks for sticking around. So this is this is the milk that's been steeped, and the cocoa powder is in there. All the spices are in there. It is super delicious. I gotta grab see, I said to be prepared, and this moment I'm not completely prepared. I needed my trusty rusty sieve so that I can pour out the chocolate, the cocoa without all of the solid. So,
and David just reminded us to add the hot pepper.
Thank you. Oh, yes, let's do that right now. That's awesome. This is why we all need friends to look after us. So, again, measure with your heart. This is up to you. I'm just going to give it like a few nice little kicks. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt also. If I can figure out what I did with my salt. Oh, there it is. I have this great little salt cellar that I love that one of my friends gave me. And I like a little bit of salt. Salt wakes up the palate. We don't have to add a lot of salt, and salt is not the enemy. So if we don't have to do strict restriction of salt, it's okay to have a little bit of salt. It really does make food taste better. And if we want people to eat healthier foods and choose healthier foods, they need to taste good. And so salt is one of those things. I'm just going to give this a little bit of one more final stir with the whisk to make sure that all that cocoa powder gets back into the mix. And then I'm going to strain it into 2 cups. So I have these double-walled glasses. They look just like the picture you saw. So they make for a very nice presentation for cocoa or coffee or any hot drink. And then I'm going to strain those. I'm going to strain those. We're just going to do our best and not worry too much about spillage. This is live and direct.
It's real.
It's the real deal. Okay, so this is a non-alcoholic kind of option. If you wanted to add alcohol or if you wanted to make it an adult beverage, you certainly could. You could do it with Kahlua would be a nice option. Kahlua is like a coffee flavored liqueur. You could do it with Bailey's maybe. With these other spices, I probably wouldn't do that. You could add a little vodka. I wouldn't do a flavored vodka unless it was a vanilla. Other than that, I would just keep it very, very simple because you don't really want to change the flavor. It's got a lot of spices in there already. And one of the great things about this cayenne pepper also is, so there are a bunch of different companies that are making mocktails now, different kinds of mocktails. And one of the things that I've seen is that some of the companies that are making mocktails are adding hot peppers, chili peppers or cayenne or something like that, in order to mimic that warm feeling you get when you drink an alcoholic beverage, right? Sometimes we feel a little bit warm after drinking that. Well, the same thing will happen with a spicy chili, right? You'll get that warm feeling. And so you can sort of mimic that by having this beverage. All right, toppings. You can put anything on this that you like. I have a couple of options. I have marshmallows. Marshmallows are always fun. Everyone likes marshmallows. If you don't like marshmallows, I'm not sure if we can be friends. A toasted marshmallow would be even better. So you could toast the marshmallows and put them on top. You could grate a little bit of dark chocolate onto the top. You could do da 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 da. You could do da 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 da. Ready Whip. Ready Whip. Ready Whip. You could do fresh whipped cream if you want to. That would be totally fine. I'm going to do a little Ready Whip. Do you want Ready Whip on yours?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So, all right. Just kidding. A little Ready Whip goes a long way, I think. And you could use a non-dairy option, totally fine. You could leave it off, totally fine too. I also pulled out this instant coffee. You could add a little instant coffee to something like this, and that would be great as well because it would give it just a little more zing. All right. That is our hot cocoa, a little extra spice. Come around this way. Cheers, friend.
Cheers.
Tell me what you think. What do you guys think? Would you make this?
I would make it again.
Yeah, very good, right?
It's delicious.
Yay, very good. All right, well, thank you again for sticking around, for joining us for this little half-hour mocktail. I'm gonna pull up one more time our slide just as a thank you. We do have, of course, this QR code. And then a thank you here. If you're interested in getting more involved with GAND, I would encourage you to scan this QR code, which will take you to our website. And you can see everything that GAND is doing, click and see opportunities to volunteer. We are in the process of recruiting for our 26-27 board, and we have awards open. So if you know a dietitian in our community who deserves recognition, please nominate them. We want to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to be celebrated because everybody deserves that. And with that, I would say thanks to all of the presenters from today's summit. I'm so grateful and appreciative of your time. Thank you for joining us, those of you who joined as participants with the summit, and those of you who are watching this live or watching it after. And thank you to Mary for all of her effort in helping pull this event together. Mary, thank you. I couldn't have possibly done it without you. So thank you so much for being a hero and being such a great part of all that we're doing at GAND.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we have comments. Great job. Thank you. Great mocktails. Cindy did say she loves spiced hot chocolate, but she does not love marshmallows, but she loves you.
I love you too, and I'll certainly make an exception for you. All right.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again. Have a great Saturday, friends.